throughout this juz, predominantly most of the surahs, if not all the surahs and chapters, are Makki surahs. And what does that mean is that the theme of the chapters from this para deals mainly with Tawheed, the oneness of Allah, deals mainly with prophethood, and also regarding Day of Judgment. So you'll find most of the chapters will give us like vivid explanations regarding Day of Judgment. That on the Day of Judgment this will happen, this will how Day of Judgment will start. Now a few verses to pick out from this para. The first is the beginning of Surah Abasa wa Tawalla, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Abasa wa Tawalla an ja'ahu al-a'ma wa ma yudrika la'allahu yazzakka. Now this surah was revealed regarding a very famous companion who was a blind companion, whose name was Abdullah ibn Maktoum radiyallahu ta'ala. And the story behind the revelation of this chapter was that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was having a dialogue and a meeting with some of the leaders of the mushrikeen. So we're talking about your main chiefs, leaders of the mushrikeen. So he was speaking to them, giving them da'wah, when all of a sudden Abdullah ibn Maktoum radiyallahu ta'ala anhu came. So when he came, due to his disability, he was blind, he didn't see that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was having a meeting and dialogue. What happened was that he came and he started interrupting and asking Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "O Prophet of Allah, teach me, teach me, teach me." So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam kept on ignoring his request. Why? Because Abdullah bin Maktoum, he was a Sahabi. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam knew that, look, let me just speak to these mushrikeens first. I'm trying to convince them to accept Islam. Abdullah ibn Maktoum, he's one of us. He's one of our men. I could teach him afterwards. It's not like I'm not going to teach him, but I'll teach him afterwards. Let me just now, for this moment, deal with the mushrikeens of Makkah. Let me give them da'wah. Let me explain. Perhaps they may convert. Now, because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam just ignored Abdullah ibn Maktoum, ignored the fact that he was blind, perhaps thought of him to be insignificant due to his disability, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not like that, and this led to the revelation of Surah Abasa wa Tawalla. What is the message which we can understand from this story and this surah? So I think the first one which comes to mind is that we shouldn't think low of people who have a disadvantage or people who have a disability. So whether they are blind, whether they are deaf, or whether they are, say, SEN students, whether they have autism, whatever disability they may have, whatever spectrum they may be on. Some have low level of autism, some have very high level. It is still a uzr and an excuse and a problem. So we should be very understanding of people's ability and disability as well. Somebody comes and is ma'zur, he's got leg problems. Now we shouldn't now force him to sit on the ground and pray salah. We have plenty of chairs available. So we then give him a chair and let him sit on the chair and pray. Others may have other uzr and disability, whatever it may be. So we should try to be as accommodating as possible. Because remember, the deen is so flexible. the deen has told us someone's got an uzr or an excuse, they could sit down and pray. If someone can't even sit down and pray, he can even lie down and pray. So the deen and the sharia has given that leeway and flexibility. We can't expect the same kind of rule for every single one. Now, yes, we need to have a standard rule. So here in i'tikaf, we need to have a standard rule. Like, look, everyone, brothers, you need to be on time, you need to do this. But yes, from amongst the mu'takifin brothers, there may be some who have uzr. There may be some who can't keep their wudu, so they have to constantly go to the bathroom. There may be others who have other illnesses, other sicknesses. So we have to keep all those things in mind, that yes, if they can't be on time for some of the prayers because of a disability they have, then yes, we should take that into consideration. So yes, there's nothing wrong with having a set rule, but then we need to be accommodating and understanding when people have a udhr or a reason or a disability that they can't do that rule, that we kind of, inshallah, be flexible and we be a bit understanding of their situation. So that is what we can understand from this particular topic. Another point which we can understand from this story just very quickly is that if you remember that when I was explaining the story, one of the reasons Rasulullah had of not dealing with Abdullah ibn Maktoum straight away was that he was a Muslim. He was a Muslim. So Rasulullah thought that, oh, he's a Muslim, wo hamare banda hai. Do you know, I could speak to him afterwards. Let me try to convince, the Abu Jahl, the Abu Lahab, and these people. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't like that. So from this we can take another point, and that is that sometimes we will put so much what we call effort in trying to convert non-Muslims that we even forget sometimes about our own Muslims. Like what the Tabligh Jamaat efforts, they focus more on the Muslims, don't they? Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that we shouldn't focus on reverts. We should. But then there needs to be a balance. Sometimes we just focus too much on reverts or trying to make people become Muslims when we then forget about our own Muslims. And I'm sure we know that there are many brothers and sisters who are out there. Our Iman level is like literally 1%. Perhaps some reverts have more stronger Iman than our own Iman. Perhaps our Iman level is so weak that even a revert who converted yesterday probably have more stronger Iman than ours. So sometimes we forget about our own Muslims and their Iman because we focus so much on non-Muslims. It's probably perhaps it's one of those things, I'm sure it trends a lot on YouTube and social media to show people that, oh, you managed to convince someone to become a Muslim. It looks nice. You'll get more hits, you'll get more views, I'm assuming. But actually, what should be more trending and what should be more kind of like amazing is trying to keep someone on Iman and to keep someone on Deen, especially in this day and age. In this day and age, as mentioned in the hadith of Tirmidhi, holding on to your Iman is like what? Holding on to hot burning coal. So you manage to kind of convince a believer to stick on this path. You gave him hidayat. You guided him. You helped him. Whatever questions he had, you tried to answer his questions. You gave him some encouragement. You gave him targheeb. And you kept him on his faith and Iman. That, especially in this day and age, is more of an amazing achievement, I reckon, than trying to convince always non-Muslims. Because let's look at it. We give so much da'wah to non-Muslims. How many non-Muslims convert in a year? What? Like some organizations are quite good. But I'm just saying, the standard one, the normal ones. How many? One, twice? Yeah, a few times, that's it. some not even anyone at all. But then how many Muslims then are getting deviated in that year? That no one's actually thinking about them, speaking to them, or even encouraging them. So inshallah, I'm not saying not to give da'wah to non-Muslims. It should be a balance of both, but it shouldn't be such that, or let's just try to convert all the non-Muslims, but then our own Muslims are suffering because of it. So this is what this ayat is also telling us, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam made a point there, that think about your own, think about your Abdullah ibn Maktoum and fellow Sahabas. Yes, people like Abu Jahl, Abu Lahab, if Allah had written hidayat for them, they will come anyway to Islam. But people who are already on hidayat, people who are already on iman, like your Abdullah ibn Maktoum and the other weaker Sahabas, they need more of your attention, they need more of your help and guidance, they need more of your spiritual mentorship. So you should kind of focus more on them than other people. This is one of the reasons why, like, sometimes people ask me, "Oh, Mufti Sahib, why don't you give lectures, more public lectures?" Obviously, I do give public lectures, but it's not as much. If I wanted to, every weekend I could be traveling out of the country, if I wanted to. Because that's how many offers I get. "Oh, let's go here, let's do this, let's do that." So if I wanted, I probably could have been traveling every weekend, every single month of the year. So people ask me, "Mufti Sahib, why don't you go out to this country, come here, go there to do a talk and lecture?" So I do it, but not always. I keep it within moderation. But one of the reasons why I said to them is, look, when it comes to public lectures in different countries, people listening to my talk, it's a bit 50-50. You know, you go to different countries, they listen to you. Whether they get hidayat or guidance, whether they change their lives or not, whether they will be inspired by your words or not, it's a bit 50-50. It's a bit hit and miss. Sometimes they can get inspired, sometimes they don't. But the reason why I stay here in Darul Ilm always is because the students who we have here, the Mu'takifin brothers who are here, whatever I say, people will be more inspired than, say, for example, going to some random countries where it's a bit 50-50 whether they're going to be inspired or not. Like here, the Mu'takifin brothers who are here over the past 10 days. I'll say most of you would take my words, whether you act upon it or not, that's a different matter. But most of you will take my words on board more than, say, for example, if I spent these last 10 days giving lectures in different venues or in different masjids, where whether they'll take my words or not, whether they'll be inspired or not, it's a bit hit and miss, 50-50. So inshallah, this is one of the main ayats to understand, that sometimes it's good to give da'wah to your own, because they are more likely to be inspired by your words than for you to go here, go there. And whether people are inspired by your words or not, as I said, it's a bit hit and miss. Now, moving along to the next kind of surah for discussion is Surah Mutaffifin. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَيْلٌ لِلْمُطَفِّفِينَ, destruction to those who cheat and those who scam and those who deceive. In what way? الَّذِينَ إِذَا اكْتَالُوا عَلَى النَّاسِ يَسْتَوْفُونَ, that when it comes to measurement and weighing, they give less or they reduce. Now, the people of Madian, to whom the Prophet Shu'aib alayhi salatu wasalam was sent, one of the reasons why they were destroyed was because they used to con people. So people used to come to them and they used to ask them, "Oh, can I have this much amount of wheat or barley?" So rather than giving them, say, 10 kilograms, they'll give purposely 9.5 kilograms. They'll do a bit of like under the table stuff. They'll kind of like do something sly, something dodgy. And Allah, because of their constant deceiving of the people and conning the people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then destroyed them. Now the reason why I mention this ayat here is because unfortunately this kind of behavior of scamming, conning people is very, very common nowadays. It's like the norm. If you don't con the customer, it's like you're not considered to be a smart or a shrewd businessman. Like to be a businessman nowadays, you have to be what? You have to con the customer. You have to sell them a package. You have to sell them something where you've kind of deceived them, or where you promise you're going to give X, Y, and Z. Just give them X and Y and don't give them the Z. And if you don't do that, you're not considered to be smart, you're not considered to be shrewd, you're not considered to be a businessman. So can you see how something which is unethical, cheating and conning, how something which is unethical has now been kind of beautified and adorned to be made into a significant trait of a successful business person. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that those who do these types of things, Allah's azab and punishment will come. The very famous hadith of Sunan Ibn Majah, I don't have time to look at every single one of it. But Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that there are 5 types of practices that when it becomes common, Allah will then punish us with 5 different things. One of them was when merchants and traders cheat and con, Allah will then punish the ummah with famine. Allah will then punish the ummah with famine. Now let's look at it. Just take a second to look at this hadith. How many people we've seen with our homeless feed? How many people are struggling? How many people are struggling nowadays? Financially, they are struggling. You know, the benefits, again, I heard, has been further cut. So, the benefits you had from the government, they are being reduced and squeezed every month, every 6 months, every year. More people are kind of on universal credit. More people are on benefit. More people are struggling to pay off their bills. More people are kind of struggling to kind of go to the shops and with the leftover money to get a weekly shop done. That's why, I'm not just talking about Darul Ilm kind of food bank. You look at the proper food banks. Every single day it's full of people, full of Muslims. Why? Well, the hadith tells us that when people around get into the habit of conning, scamming, cheating, doing doka and deception, the punishment Allah will then befall on that society and community will be what? Famine and difficulties. And we're seeing that. Everyone's struggling. So look, the more people cheat, the more Allah will punish you with difficulties. The ones who cheat and con, have they automatically become successful? No. They're not successful. Look, I'm sure you've seen some conners and some scammers out there. Have they automatically become multimillionaire by just cheating someone of a few pounds? No. But what's happened is that due to their actions, and I've said this in earlier tafsir, when you do bad, Allah not only punishes you, punishes the community and the locality and the society. So the more you do bad, the more Allah will punish. So we're seeing that within our own locality. Forget about going anywhere else. So the more we are mistrusted in our muamlats and dealings, the more we cheat, the more we take advantage of the vulnerable, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to punish us further. So this i'tikaf, especially for those who are working, doesn't have to be always businessmen. Those who are working even, we have as employees certain tasks we have to do. Now, if we are not fulfilling those tasks, we are meant to work, say, from 9 till 5, but we finish at 4:30 and we say to the employer, or we worked until 5 o'clock, that 30 minutes extra, that comes under tatfif. That's cheating, isn't it? Why are you getting paid extra when you haven't done the job? So there's so much things we do in life where we try to like bend the rule, cheat the system, con, deceive. You're just asking for more trouble from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're asking for more poverty. You're asking for more difficulty. I'm sure many of us work for companies. Now, when we're working and we kind of clock off half an hour early, have we miraculously become rich by earning an extra hour's work, getting paid for an extra hour without actually working? Have we become rich? No, we're still poor. We're still struggling, aren't we? So the hadith tells us that when you do things not according to the sunnah and the sharia, what happens is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts you into difficulties. And that's why in this very same surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions verse number 14, he says, Kalla bal rana ala qulubihim ma kanu yaksibun. Which means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put ran. Ran basically means rust in your heart. So in all the sins you're doing, all the cheating you're doing, all the deception you're doing, all the haram you're doing, what happens over time? There's rust and dirt which is being accumulated in your heart. The very famous hadith of Tirmidhi, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, when somebody commits a sin, what happens? A black dot appears. If we do another sin without tawbah, another nuktatun sawda, another black dot appears. Another black dot, to the extent that your entire heart then becomes full of black dots. In another narration of Sahih Muslim, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam explained that just imagine you have a bottle of water, and at the bottom of the water there's dust which has accumulated, and the dust has sank all the way to the bottom. So you got a bottle of water and there's dust right at the bottom. Now if I was to turn the bottle upside down, the dust particles gonna go everywhere. It's gonna go everywhere. So this is the exact example. This is the hadith of Sahih Muslim, when it mentions that, your heart, the dirt and the filth and the rust of the sins, the black dot, it's like everywhere all across the heart. It's like, say, for example, when you have stale bread or molded bread, the mold isn't just concentrated on one part of the bread, it's everywhere. So you have to throw the entire slice of bread away. So this is the exact same with the heart. It's not like, the top part of the heart is black and the rest is all clean and pure, that we could still do good deeds. The black dots everywhere. The disease has spread to all parts of the organ. So even though there may be some good parts, but right next to the good part, there's a black dot. So that heart, in other words, has become unfunctionable. You can't do anything with the heart. So this is why Allah says that these people who are doing these sins of cheating and doing bad and haram, it's because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put rust over their hearts, that they are unable to do any good deeds, and they are unable to actually realize, I think that's the key word, realize or have any ihsas or feelings that what we have done is something bad. Like, again, everyone's iman level is different. But look, there needs to be at least some sort of guilt. Come on, there needs to be some sort of guilt, isn't it? In your heart, that you've done a bad and you're cheating and you're conning someone. But if your heart is all rusted, if there's black dots everywhere on your heart, then you should have at least, you're not going to have any sort of feeling whatsoever that you have done something bad. Now let me mention the next point. How do we get rid of this rust from the heart? So it's mentioned in the hadith that everything requires a polish. وَسَقَالَةُ الْقَلْبِ, and the polishing of the heart is dhikrullah. So remembering Allah, doing good deeds, and also reading the Qur'an regularly. So they are the things which removes the rust from your heart. So inshallah, when we do good deeds, even after the month of Ramadan, inshallah, let's get into the habit, continue with some of the good practices we've started, mainly reading Qur'an, doing zikrullah, tasbih, istighfar regularly. So when we do those types of actions, then the rust which is on our heart will inshallah be removed. And the more the rust and the dirt of the heart is removed, the more inshallah we will have awareness and feelings for people's difficulties, the more awareness we will have that we shouldn't be exploiting others, cheating on others, we shouldn't be scamming and conning others. So the more awareness we have, inshallah, the more good deeds we do, and that then requires that, some of the good things which we have started during this blessed month, we inshallah put into practice after the blessed month of Ramadan.